Hello and welcome to This Woman's Work, a space where you can hear and read about some amazing women, the fantastic jobs they do and the paths that have led them to where they are today. I'm here so with Nicky. Hi Nicky.
Hi.
This is going to be break room number 2.
Cool.
Which is an informal chat about being a woman in work. So it's not specifically talking about your career, which would be an amazing chat anyway, but I've pinned you down just to have a chat.
Yeah.
Because I've obviously known you for a very long time, like a really long time. You know, it's been like over 20 years.
It has been over 20 years.
Depressing.
Yeah, and you were Michelle when I first knew you, and then you turned into Chops.
Well, and why did I turn into Chops, Nicky?
Wow. It's a long story. It's a long story.
Yes, that you played a very pinnacle part in.
Yeah, I think everyone had nicknames then. But you only ever give nicknames to people you really like.
So, I know. Well, I did an Instagram post about this recently, and yeah, you are very much... I know you're very humble with it, but you are very much responsible for Chops.
Oh, I know. It was a long time ago.
Very long time ago. But the reason I wanted to chat to you today was because we both worked together in a media company many years ago. You still work there. And for me, it was, and I don't know whether it is, and I think this will be interesting in the chat, a very male, or definitely the sector we worked in was very male dominated. And that came with it lots of challenges, lots of fun, but lots of challenges. And I think you've always navigated that really, really well. Like, really well. And I guess that's what I wanted to chat to you about today, is like, what choices did you make, or decisions did you make at what time? How do you think that all went? Because you've had an amazing career and your reputation has been amazing. But I don't know, like now, when you go into, because obviously you're very senior and very important, when you go into these big meetings, what's the balance of men and women now in your meetings?
Wow, that's such an interesting question, because I guess gender is something I probably never really thought about until the last 3 to 5 years.
Same, yeah.
And that is so interesting, because I was lucky enough to grow up in an environment where I think the sense of belonging and inclusion was not talked about.
Yeah.
But actually we worked in a media company where anything kind of went, and there was lots of different people. You'd got this real heady mix of, you know, Oxford, Cambridge grads, and then people like me that had flunked their A-levels even and fallen straight into work, and, you know, was a bit of a kind of street scrapper at work, but did really, really well. And also, there's quite a lot of diversity. But yeah, it was male-oriented. But I think maybe because it was a really creative environment, it wasn't as male as some environments can be. Because I think I know some people, some women who've worked in really male-dominated sectors where the maleness has probably been a lot more male. I think we're really lucky. So I never really thought about it until recently.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. Yeah.
That is really interesting. But I think equally, I mean, if we even go right back then, I mean, obviously we're going to have to touch a little bit on your career. So at what point did you start? Because you started quite young, didn't you? Yeah,
I started work when I was 17. I always knew when I was kind of doing my A-levels, I just wanted to get on. I couldn't quite see the point of going to uni. I guess now I'd be seen as really entrepreneurial, but I was at an all-girls school, and it was like trying to get you to do STEM or go and be in childcare or something like that.
So like really academic, or pushing you down a really girly, And
all I wanted to do was be a visual merchandiser in Selfridges or something like that.
Yeah.
And like
everyone want to do that now.
I know, it's crazy.
On Liberty, I definitely want to do that. But, Liberty.
You know, I'm in my mid-50s now. Those sort of jobs didn't really exist. It was like, oh yeah, go and work in a shop, and you could do the window dressing. So I had a bit of a showdown at school and with my parents, and there was a bit of an ultimatum, like you either buckle down or you leave. And I decided to leave. And I was mad about media. I grew up with magazines was such a vibrant
You've
thing.
always loved magazines.
Loved magazines, loved reading, loved the media, loved TV. And I was lucky enough to go and work on a newspaper, which was really, really, really exciting. And this is in the days where kind of print media felt like social media does now. Like, it was really cool. So, I went in at the bottom, pretty much served my apprenticeship and then worked my way up. And at that point, I worked in an office with about, I think there were 67 men and 4 women. Wow. And the women were all in administrative roles.
Yeah.
But everyone had really feisty relationships. The women kind of wore the trousers, really.
So they were the ones sorting everything out, the 4 of them?
Yeah. They were like sorting stuff out, and I went in and I was just doing real admin-y stuff. But it was, it was much better than being at school.
Yeah.
And it was really good fun, and it was an education. And I don't remember it being difficult, but I was quite ballsy, really. And I'd grown up in a male environment. I grew up in a farming environment, so I'd always hung out with a lot of boys and men, and I don't think I really took much notice. And I think I had a really feminist family. You know, my father is very feminist, my grandfather was. So I just didn't really think about it. I was probably so cocky, it didn't enter my head. But I think things feel quite different now. The environment I'm working in now, I'd say around the board and exec room table, there are more men than women. Whereas all throughout my career, whichever job or company I've worked for, and I've kind of mixed it up quite a bit, actually there's been really fair representation. And I think this is probably just a strange moment in time for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, how did you navigate? So if you're in a kind of admin role, how did you progress out of that admin role then to become more of a... Because obviously to me, you're such a powerhouse of a woman and such a powerhouse of a working woman.
Yeah.
Is it just sheer tenacity then?
Well, I have to say the first person that gave me a job was a bloke, but then I worked for a woman. And then the second job I jumped to after about 18 months, it was another female that gave me a job.
Okay.
And this is like the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. And they were both women that worked full-time and had kids, which was quite rare then.
Yeah.
I know that this is insane, because it doesn't feel like... Well, for some people listening to this, that will feel like a long time ago.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like a long time ago. But there wasn't many women working there. But I've found that's probably been a trend through my career. I've worked for some amazing men who have been real feminists and have really pushed and pulled women into really good female exec positions. A couple of those men, I think, have actually preferred having women in senior roles around them than men. I'm not saying they have a preference. I guess I did just say there's a preference. I don't know whether it was a preference, but...
It's about balance, though, isn't it? And that's them recognising the balance it brings.
Yeah, I think so. I think they prefer to work in an environment that's really, really mixed. So I've worked for a few men that have put me into brilliant, brilliant jobs. But I think it's always been women in my career that have helped me make those moves that I probably... wouldn't have made without encouragement and sponsorship. So I think it's been women that have gone, no, I think you should do this, and kind of pushed me out of that, pushed me out of the safe zone, through the imposter zone, and doing something that probably felt uncomfortable but supported me.
Like marketing always felt quite female, didn't it?
I think marketing and HR always feel quite female. Finance feels quite male, although actually I've worked with a lot of amazing female finance directors.
Yeah.
But I think IT is one. I mean, I'm working with on a big programme at the moment, a big global programme. And with a big IT team. And I mean, IT is so male-dominated. That is completely different to my experience. There are some wonderful people in that team.
Yeah.
But I have found it more challenging because I think it has got quite a male energy.
Well, also, and my perception of you is you're very creative.
Yeah.
And suddenly you're in this world of IT.
Yeah.
Getting your head around all of that, trying to converse with them in a way that shows that you... Because I guess, are you ultimately in charge then?
I'm working on a change program. So my role is to make the change easier for the business to swallow and for the people in the business to move with the change. So it's kind of like marketing. You're really trying to get under the skin of what makes people tick, what they're frightened of. And most people, like, there's only 2 words that put fear into people. You say to them, you know, change, or I'm going to give you some feedback. And like both of those are like really terrifying.
Yeah.
So I try not to use the word change. This is a completely different podcast, isn't it, really? But I always say to people I'm coaching, like, don't talk to teams about change. Talk about what you're actually doing, and to transition or a reset. Because change for most people is scary.
It is scary.
So a lot of what I'm doing is trying to make change feel more comfortable. And I use my NLP skills to do that. Coaching I've built up over the years.
Yeah.
But most of the teams I've worked with over the last 10 years, I tend to go into teams, work out what's not working for the teams, but what's not working for the business, and go through like an 18-month change process. And I tend to do it quite iteratively. The program I'm on now is quite a big tech change. So it's putting new tech into a business. And that's hard because everyone gets used to a way of working.
That's also a cultural shift as well, isn't it?
Yeah, big cultural shift. And most people resist it. But yeah, I'm working with quite a lot of IT people, quite a lot of consultants, and it is really male dominated. We're talking about gender now. I don't know, and I'm really overplaying this. I get really nervous about labelling things, but I think creativity is quite female.
Yeah.
I think tech is quite male.
Well, getting stuff done is quite female.
Yeah. And there's some brilliant females working in tech, but do you know what? There's 1 in 10, 1 in 12. I think that's my observation. I wonder if
that's going to shift though, because surely with this next generation coming through, there's got to be a lot more women in tech. Surely girls that are doing it now, because it's almost the future, isn't it?
I hope so. I wonder whether it's global programs are really hard, and a lot of women do really, really hard jobs, but working lots of hours on international programs where your hours are all over the place.
Right.
I just wonder how many women, because I do believe most of the caring for most women ends up with them, just whether they can do those hours.
Yeah.
So I think there's lots of reasons, but yeah, I am more comfortable working in a more balanced environment, but I'm more comfortable in a creative environment, I guess.
Yeah.
So I was acting as a managing director of a big commercial team in the UK.
Yeah.
And we had, within a whole wave of different transitions within the team and a lot of integrations between different teams, we'd put some new tech in, and we'd done a really collaborative change program, I'll say change, where we transform the way we work. And that program went really well, and we were spending millions on a new piece of tech. And unusually, this program came in on time and under budget, which is really unusual for tech projects. So that gave me a little bit of a positive reputation, I think. And really unusually, the 5 people working on that program were all female, had this real female team.
Wow.
So it was amazing.
So within a division, you were managing a change
shift.
I
got loads of project managers in, and but we were a real dynamic bunch. And I think we got the real emotional and rational balance right with the teams we were moving through it, and did a lot of problem solving. So there's a huge amount of female energy on that program, and I sometimes go, oh, I wonder whether that's why it came in on time and under budget. I don't know. I'd love someone to tell me. But a lot of the partners we were working with were really surprised it was an all-female team. So, and I think that is a tech thing. Anyway, so I'd done that. I did that. It's not really my bread and butter. But it was good.
Doing.
Yeah. And we knew if we got this tech in, we would save the sales team we were working with. We would give back a day a week to each salesperson, which is highly valuable because they can use that to do more work, bring more revenue in, whatever.
Yeah.
So and that actually happened. So we had a really strong objective. So it was on time, under budget, and it delivered against expectation, which just isn't usual in this complex world. So did that, and then this huge...
Made a rod for your own back, basically.
Well, maybe. A really big project was happening at group level, putting in some new finance tech, but this is across thousands and thousands of people globally, not just in the UK. And a really great colleague of mine who I have worked with lots over the years. This is quite interesting for our gender kind of like story. A lady called Sarah Barnes, whose actually background is actually HR. She runs globally the people and culture development team.
Right.
And at the time, she was employing change managers to work on programs. And this finance program had been a bit bumpy, and I went in to work with the global CFO and her team to kind of get the change journey in place.
Yeah.
So completely different to what I'd worked on before. I thought it would be really similar. It's not. It's way more complex. But it's been brilliant because I'm working with lots and lots of people from lots of different countries. It's been good, but it's been really hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And I've learned a lot about change management, but do you know what? Doing change management transformations, you just got to dial up being human. It's a really, really human experience.
Yeah.
I know you have a little life in you yet. I know you have a lot of strength left. I know you have a little life in you yet. I know.
My observation is more women are better at that than men, or my observation is women do that more than men. So I think I think all of those skills, they're kind of labelled as soft skills, pink skills.
Yeah.
And I think they're like real critical human skills. And in a digital world going forward, I think those
where
human
change is
sensitivity,
constant.
really, really understanding people and motivations and caring is going to be super important.
Well, because otherwise, if you can't, even in a really, in a critical, like in that IT team, if you can't figure out who's happy and who's not, like really happy and who's not, then people just leave, and it blindsides you, doesn't it? Because suddenly people, I'm going.
I think happy people do better work and are more fulfilled. And I'm at a stage in my life as well. It's a different part of my career now where I just want to work with people I really like that are inspiring, but also give something back. And I think we all have to do that throughout our careers, but especially when you've got a back catalogue of skills. And one of the things I try and do every day, without sounding really cheesy, is to just help people live a better life through their work. And I think work serves a really strong purpose. I think we build relationships, we build friendships.
Spend a lot of time there.
I think it's really isolated sometimes working from home. If you've got an issue you're dealing with or a problem, if you're at home on your own, it can feel like the biggest thing ever. You go into an office, hell, if everyone else looks hacked off, you at least feel better because you're sharing the load.
Yeah.
I personally think they're real female skills. It's the people thing I love.
Well,
I love people.
You do love people, and you like going where you almost like going where the shit is. You're like drawn to solve shit, aren't you? To solve it.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't mind doing difficult stuff. I don't. Someone's got to do difficult stuff. Some people avoid difficult stuff.
Very much so.
I quite like
going into teams that are in a bit of a shitstorm and thinking, oh, okay, I reckon I can do something with that. That isn't for everyone.
Yeah, no, I quite like that. I don't mind that at all. Quite like it. I quite like feeling a little bit scared. But then I go into things and I feel terrified and I have imposter syndrome and I shake and I don't sleep and I really worry about it and I say, why didn't you stay doing the safe thing? You're such a dick. But I think it's good to be scared.
How often because to me, obviously, I find that hard to believe that you'd be like that. But how often are you like that then?
I was like that last week. I think someone sent me an email and I was probably tired. It's quite a big learning for all women at work. I think if you're tired or you're not eating properly, you're not looking after yourself, you react in really... I react in what some people would consider a really female way. I get quite emotional.
Yeah.
And I got an email and anyone would think a tiger was just about to eat me or something. And I think we all do that. And I'm quite happy to talk about stuff like that because I think it's a really normal response. But I get fight or flight. And if I have 3 bad days in a row, it like really chips away at you. But I'm pretty good at picking myself up. I rebound quite quickly.
Okay, so in terms of where you are now then with your work...
Yeah.
What about, let's talk about the young uns. Because you obviously must see the churn coming through. So the young whippersnappers coming in now, boys and girls. We're going to call them boys and girls. What's their attitude like? Because this is where I don't quite, other than kind of understanding what I see on social media, which is my only barometer.
Yeah.
What's their view of gender, do you think, in the workplace? Is it shifting, I guess, is where I'm sort of going with this question. Do you think...
I don't know is the truth. I've got a daughter. I've got a daughter who's at uni, so I tend to hear a lot of female energy, and my sense is the girls are quite feisty and on it, and they've got a plan.
Right.
The boys don't seem to have that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it's true. Boys' brains don't develop as quick as girls, so I think girls at a younger age are advantaged to get into the workplace.
Because what's Phoebe now, 20?
She is, she's going to be 21 this year. I've got a 21-year-old daughter. It's crazy,
And she's badass.
She lives in an all-female house, so yeah, that's what I'm saying. I get quite a lot of female energy from her. I honestly don't know what the kids think about gender. I think they're more neutral than us. Certainly, she went to a mixed school, and I think it was very different for her at school than it was for me. But, things have changed. I think they're much more mixed up. They have much more mixed friendship groups.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know. I can't answer that. I think that would be really interesting to see. I do worry about them though, because I think they all trot off to uni. It's really hard work. It costs so much money compared to when I didn't go. But you got really good grants and everyone had an amazing time. What I've noticed is they don't go out anywhere near as much because going out's expensive, and they're spending so much on their degree. They're more committed to it.
Interesting.
But I still think it's really hard for them to get jobs that pay good money.
Yeah.
So I really feel for them. They have to really get their elbows out, don't they?
Bless them. Okay, so we don't know. So we don't know what young people think.
I don't know. I think they probably
do a young person chat, don't I?
I think they probably don't think about it as much, but I think they have a high expectation that they're going to work in a diverse and inclusive environment because of their woke nature. Which is different to me.
Yeah. So do you think that there's just no element of male privilege, though? As in, like, they're all now thinking, they're like you say, they just expect it to be
I think 50-50. They absolutely expect to see female leaders, but ethnic diversity. I think their expectation is that the workplace is modern and representative.
Yeah. I wonder, and if it isn't, I wonder how... I need to ask them that.
And fairness. I think, look, if you ask most people what their values are, most people, fair will be in their top 3.
Really?
But I think, yes, for sure, try it. You ask people what their values are and most people will say fair. Now you can prove me wrong.
No, I believe that completely, and I think that's wonderful if that's... because that's big, isn't it? That covers everything, doesn't it? Yeah. It's basically saying, for the work I put in, I expect to be treated fairly, not...
Yeah, I think they have expectations.
Fair is good. That's a good expectation, because it's not grand, is it?
No, they want things to be fair and equitable, and if there's just not as much loyalty. I think when I first started out at work, you didn't flit around.
Oh God, they
Whereas
really
they'll just go like, oh, I'm going travelling now.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Or they don't stay somewhere for more than a year, do they?
No, and they want to work from home, or they want to work from, they want to work from wherever their feet want to be.
Yeah.
So I think they want more flexibility, more fairness. Gender I'm not so sure about, but I think they want to work somewhere that's inclusive, that they feel has a social conscience as well. Because I think all those things are important to this group of people.
I think there are a lot of women that probably have maybe stopped working because they've had kids pre-COVID.
Yeah.
are going back into work, and I do think it's a completely different work environment now. If you were used to working in the noughties or whatever, and you've taken 5-10 years out to raise children potentially, and you're going back in now, the working world is a different place, I think.
There's some amazing groups in media, and I can give you the details of them, that really look out for women in their 50s that have probably missed out on a load of career development and are coming back, and they really help. Do you know what? That's a real difference. There are a lot of different groups and societies and organisations that target specific groups and really help them. And it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? Because I know loads of people that work in my old team who love their post-COVID world because it's fine for them. They'll come into the office till 3 and then go home and do the school run, then switch on later. So I think it just depends who your manager is, where you work. But outside of work, I do a lot of work with my friend Hayley Southwood, who has a network of women that have their own businesses just like you.
Yeah.
And there's about 350 people in her group, and they all come together and support each other. And they all have their own digital businesses. And she just creates a forum of support. And nearly every single one of those women is someone who's been spat out of a work environment that hasn't worked for them, particularly when they've had kids.
Yeah.
Loads of marketers, actually, because it's really hard work, isn't it? It's really hard work, and it's inflexible.
And it's
and
also
a lot of marketing people are really entrepreneurial.
Yeah. And it's in lots of respects it is quite a young person's game, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Definitely in today's day and age. Yeah. Well, I've got a friend that she was the break room chat one. She's trying to get back into work now, and she's marketing more B2B. And the first chat was very much about, feeling irrelevant. But equally, we came to a point at the end of this very waffly first break room chat of saying that also a lot of it are our hang-ups as well.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like how, we're putting... There is definitely a gap. Like, employers aren't still, we don't think, embracing experience enough. Like, irrelevant of the fact that, someone might have taken, say, 10 years out. All that woman, let's just say, is asking to do is go back in at the point she left. She's not asking to pretend that she's, although hopefully she's kept her finger in or, kept her eye in some respects.
Yeah.
But, even at that point, she's still going to be 10 years older, maybe 15 years older than the other applicants for the role. And therefore isn't really getting a look in because she's probably just looks a bit odd. And employers aren't quite willing to just take that punt, even though, like we were saying, well, she's had her kids, so she's a safer bet now, whereas younger people coming along are probably going to bugger off and have those. It's a tricky one.
I'm a real advocate for blind CVs that don't have any information on about, whether you're male, female, what your date of birth is, when you went to uni, because I think it helps you to make the right decisions about people. So I think that really helps you recruit people in an inclusive way. But I totally buy what you and some of the other ladies have been saying to you, because I think if you've got a vulnerable leader hiring for roles, they will be really wobbly about employing a strong, very experienced female that might be older than them or might be the same age, because they might feel like they've got more control over someone younger with less experience.
We said that exact thing, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's all to do with vulnerability.
But then you've got to go to get that role. You'd almost have to go in and play small, wouldn't you? You'd have to almost underplay yourself to get that role.
But then if it's an environment or employer like that, you don't want to work for them, do you?
I know.
But that's easy for me to say, because some people need... Sometimes you need to work.
Yeah, or you need to take a job often just to get back in, get your foot back in the door.
Yeah, you can't afford to be that choosy.
Yeah.
But if we had a magic wand, we'd match everyone, the right person up with the right job and the right environment, wouldn't we? Because the right conditions bring out your brilliance. What I found with a lot of females is if you say to them, tell me about you, what's brilliant about you, a lot of them can't stand in their own value.
No.
And I have a little exercise I do with people. I find a lot of females put themselves down all the time, or you ask them to apply for things and they can't. and you ask them what's brilliant about them and they can't tell you. And then
they're
you
too
tell
scared
them,
to tell you.
You tell them why they're amazing and they don't believe you.
Yeah.
And I had a brilliant coach who made me stand in my own value once. And it's this exercise you do, you map it out on the floor and you have to stand in your own value. And I couldn't because it felt really uncomfortable. And she kept going until I could stand in my own value. And so for women to be able to do that, or for women to rock up and win in an interview situation, they need to really understand their value. And we find it really difficult, which goes back to your theory about men.
Yeah.
Men find it much easier to stand in their value.
Or overstate their value.
Yeah.
They'll overstate it, whereas women will really understate it. So that's the thing. The long and short of it is we've still got a long way to go, haven't we, as women, to get that confidence.
Which is being too apologetic, isn't it? We can be too apologetic. How often do you see men go, I'm really sorry, but...
Yeah.
They just don't, do they? Whereas we're like, I'm really sorry, but if you've got some time, would you mind?
Yeah.
We just lace all of our interactions with apology.
Yeah. On that note, I'm going to say thank you so much, Nick.
That's okay. I hope you can glean some useful nuggets out of that.
Oh, there'll be loads of useful
rambling
nuggets.
chat.
Well, and quite clearly, I need to get you on again. If you would like to hear more about this chat, see some pics and read about how to get started in this industry and or this role, then please go to our website www.thiswomanswork.org. The link is on this podcast page and across our socials. Sincere thanks.